What's up, summoners? King Blair here. That's right, we woke up at 5 a.m. to get you the latest news on Epic 7, this time talking about the new ML 5-star ML Lilibet and whether or not she will destroy control. So if you respect the dedication or you just like the content, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server. Link down in the description. Without further ado, let's get right into it. It is very early, so if I misspeak, I apologize. But as a control player, I did want to talk about Emma Lilibet because she's pretty spicy, and I do see her being able to counter a lot of my drafts and being pretty annoying. So we'll see whether or not, how good is Emma Lilibet, right? Is control dead? Is it over? Is control meta over? Can she do it? So let's kind of look at the skills, look at the skill preview and all that good stuff, and we can talk about her initial thoughts. This could change, as more units come out. We still haven't seen Senya. They always can release other units or different announcements later on. So there's a lot of potential for things to change, especially the meta changes overall in control. Doesn't become as oppressive for some weird reason, like people start building the race. But let's see how she does, right? A lot of people were excited about it. Let's see the ultimate animation. That's pretty. That's pretty slick. Not gonna lie, y'all. I'm a pretty big fan of the ultimate animations. They always get them on point. That one is kind of funny how she's actually using fabric, because if you don't know, she comes from the universe of Top Model Luluka, and they really did make them look very, very similar. But yeah, you see them walking and you're like, wow. They did a really good job on the design. When you see her with Top Model Luluka, you're like, okay, yeah, they definitely look like they're from the same universe. Of course, it's the Strasse one, the Strasse storyline where Strasse is a designer. But you're probably not here for the storyline. You're probably here to hear a control player cry and complain about a new control counter. So let's go look at the skills in the kit. So very, very interesting stats as well. I'm very impressed with her stats and her skills. All right, so first, stats. I always like to look at either stats because it all kind of tells you what they're going to be like. And she screams Bruiser, right? Her speed is not insane, but it is not absolutely horrible. It's the same speed as Polides, if you wanted a point of reference, but it is on the slow. It's not a opener type of unit, right? She does have very high health and very good defense. I believe she has the same stats as like Ravi and Ken. She may have a slightly higher defense, but I think they're about the same stats as Ravi and Ken. As we see there, she also doesn't have any help on the crit rate, but has, again, pretty good defensive stats, right? That's the big thing. She's going to be a bruiser because just from the stats. The imprint concentration being crit rate, we already know crit rate imprint concentration is the best imprint concentration. It gives you the most stats for what you're getting, which means that you're able to go in and use way better stuff, right? You're able to give them way stronger gear, and that can be really, really impactful. So her having the critical hit chance, really, really good. Letting her crit more often and be a damage bruiser, right? So she definitely has a bruiser capabilities. Her damage does base off of her defense, which does allow you to make her extremely tanky while still doing damage. Think of Maya, right? Where Maya also does scale off of defense. She also has a very similar concept as Maya, where you're trying to counter control by cleansing, not rather. It's weird. We'll get to it. But let's start talking about her skills. Of course, starting with the S2. This skill, the clip they show, it's cerise ftene. It shows that, hey, we're trying to counter control, right? So what she does is, if you Mulagora the skill, you start the fight at 50 fighting spirit. So it only affects the starting fighting spirit. I made the mistake before. I thought it was just what she gains, but no, it's just the fighting spirit. You will start with 50% when this is fully Mulagora out. I know my math is not the best, so it took me like 20 minutes to make this math up at 5 a.m. But I was able to come up with 50% once you Mulagora this skill out. And 5 fighting spirit every time the opponent ends their turn. And you get 5 fighting spirit for every debuff every single time the opponent takes the turn. So let's think someone like Cerise or ftene. Cerise and ftene each apply 2 debuffs to every unit, assuming that they land their skills. ftene having the capability to hit 3 if you have a counter unit on your team. So if you have a counter unit, she'll be able to apply 3. When that unit ends her turn, you will get 40%. Let's use Cerise in this example. Let's say Cerise uses her S3. She comes in, let's say she gets a perfect S3. She hits everyone. Everyone gets 2 debuffs applied to them. That means that you're going to be getting about 40% fighting spirit when you end the turn. The next unit to take the turn, which most likely will be your opponent, right? Because they put the cerise in there. They probably have a control combo they want to do. When that second unit ends their turn, you get another 40 fighting spirit. You'll get to 100 and you will trigger the ultimate, which, or not the ultimate, the passive, which cleanses her debuffs and gives her 40% CR. That is going to cut into almost every single team out there. 40% is huge, right? If you're at 200 something speed, you're going to cut against pretty much everything unless they're using a CR push from like Athletica for some reason. But she is going to cut in. And her ultimate will follow up against that control unit. The thing that's really crazy about this skill is, let's say for some reason, after she takes a turn, there's another follow-up control unit. Let's say they have an A Tywin for some reason. They had a Cerise, they had an Alencia, and they had an A Tywin. After A Tywin goes, every time the opponent ends a turn, she's getting those extra fighting spirit. She's cycling over and over. This does not have a once per turn, right? So she gets to 100 several times. She's going to be cycling super duper hard. And now the S3, why she combos off and why she could potentially cut into the second part of the control team. The S3 is pretty spicy. It's not an end all be all because it's not a full dispel, right? It is only it decreases debuff duration for 2 turns, which is essentially a full dispel, right? Sorry, I misspoke. This is essentially a full dispel. It decreases debuff duration of all allies by 2 turns. There is almost no unit in this game that will be able to apply a 3-turn debuff, with the exception of Dizzy comboing with the S2. But at that point, it's like, okay, you already used a ton of souls, and it's still gonna hurt you a lot, right? You're still gonna lose the game. But this is essentially a full team dispel. What this means is that you're able to come in right after your whole team was fully like debuffed. Come in, S3, cleanse everything. Boom. And you get 50 fighting spirit on top of that. Which means that if they follow up with some control, you're going to still be cycling a ton because you're already at 50 fighting spirit. This essentially takes 2 debuffs. When you take 4 turns, she will get it again. Or more debuffs, she'll get it again a lot quicker, right? Depending on how many debuffs you apply. But this is huge because most control teams have their debuffs on their ultimates. So once they use their ultimates, they are done. If Cerise and ftene both use their ultimates in combination, they're done. Those 2 units, they're over, right? And what's crazy about this skill is that it also reduces skill cooldown by 1 turn. If you've been fighting Guild Wars, you know that ftene Cerise is everywhere, with Arbiter Wildred usually. With this passive, along with this ultimate, what ends up happening is, let's say they go ftene, they go Cerise, the AI, right? There's 3 units. Let's say they land their debuffs. That's 6 debuffs, right? On each of the allies. That means she's getting 30% every time at the end, which means that after they take their turns, before Arbiter Wildred goes, Emma Lilibet is going to come in, cleanse all the debuffs, and come in with an S3. That Arbiter Wildred will not have immunity, and you take away that Arbiter Wildred's S3 capability. So if you're using Emma Haste, Emma Lilibet, I know, a lot of MLs, I know, privilege. But it's still, regardless, you're able to take away the Arbiter Wildred's S3, cleanse all the debuffs of your team. So essentially that ftene series did nothing. You're able to set up the rest of your units for the combo. This is huge in Guild Wars. This is huge in Arena, like ftene Cerise teams. This is huge in RTA because just ftene applies enough debuffs that when they take the next turn with the follow-up unit, Emma Lilibet will be cutting in. She will be reducing the cooldown of any unit that's not on immunity or on the other units, and she will be cleansing your team. That is so freaking powerful, and it just makes it really, really good. Then, of course, we haven't talked about the S1. The S3, you can see it here, kind of so you can see the example of it, and even like different sample scenarios, right? So, in this scenario, ftene landed. Let's see what they did. Cerise landed a ton of debuffs, but with Cerise and ftene, after the ftene went, she cleansed, and now she gets to come in, cleanse everything, and reduce buff duration for like T-Cern, right? So right now, T-Cern doesn't get S3, right? So that's really good, right? Because most control teams rely on the S3s and then on that initial burst. Taking that away is huge. Then, of course, the S1, Silence. Of course, they have to give her control on an anti-control unit. Just so us control players would be able to pull for her and pick her for ourselves. Partially kidding that by that, but she does have pretty good control kit as well. But she does get an extra 10% effect chance to land silence, so it's a 75% chance to land a silence. That's really good. It's annoying. It can definitely win you fights on the right at the right times, right? Like if you're able to land this consistently on Arbiter Villager, that RB never gets to S3 until you want them to die and they come back and do their S3. So that's really good. You can also land this on critical healing units over time, and even like on ftene if she's about to get her S3 back up. Let's say you didn't want to go for her, you're not ready to deal with that S3 yet, even though you probably should have your S3 by the time ftene has her S3 because you're going to be cycling so much. But assuming she's way faster than you, you're still able to silence it, make sure that they don't get the turn. It can be really annoying. It can be pretty game changing. You can land this on C sides if you have your own form of strip, and it can be really annoying there. So there's a lot of things, right? So overall, what do I think about MO Lilibet? Is control dead? That was the big question that we started when we started this video. As always, a playstyle doesn't die when they have one counter. That's something that is always that way, but it definitely does make it harder for abusing cerise, because the passive makes it so it's every time you have a debuff and every time you end the turn. Usually if it was just every time an ally takes a turn, you could slow them down. But the fact is, every time you take a turn, it takes away your lapping potential. Because now if you apply a certain number of debuffs, she's cycling constantly. If there's 4 debuffs on her team, or 5 debuffs, which is a lot of debuffs, right? She's going to be able to cycle that a lot. But that's just for in terms of cycling over time. Even if you apply things like I provoke, right? Even things like a provoke will make it so she will be getting 5% every time you take a turn. She'll be able to cycle a lot and get to her ultimate faster. But where the combo really matters is going to be in the fact that you can't overwhelm her with debuffs, which means that you can't just use all your skills. You can't blow everything at the beginning. Like control players like myself, we like to blow everything in the beginning. We like to do cerise ftene if we're using cerise ftene, or we like to end it with a Tywin, right? Like with an Alencia combo, we end with a Tywin. Now she makes it so we have to be very careful of our timing, or we're gonna lose all the work we did, right? So it makes it a lot scarier to go into a designer Lilibet. She kind of is gonna work kind of like an F Maya, where she doesn't necessarily do a lot besides the S3 to help the team, but is gonna be constantly be a threat to you. The only thing I could see is with slower control teams, if you're able to for small control teams, right? Like the A Tywin Specimen Cess combinations, she needs to have 2 units take a turn. So if you're able to hold on your debuffs until you get to do what you want to do, or potentially one-shot her with something like a Specimen Cess with A Tywin. If an A Tywin goes and that's every single debuff from the opponent, which usually he doesn't, but assuming he does, she still is not going to have enough to cut in. So it does make it so you have to plan a lot better. Or let's say, for example, that you use Bassara Alencia, right? If you're able to set it up so she takes a turn before your A Tywin goes, then your A Tywin should be on immunity. She won't be reducing the cooldown. A Tywin will still be able to go in there. She'll already use her ultimate. She can cleanse herself, which is like, I mean, yeah, she's going to take more turns if you use A Tywin S3, but at least you'll still be able to control her team. So there are ways to work around designer Lilibet. She's not a straight up control killer, but she definitely makes things harder for those aggressive control teams, right? For control teams that are relying on that turn 1, the Cerise, Arbiter Vildred, ftene type control team, or the T-Cern, Arbiter Vildred, Cerise type of aggro cleave control teams, this is a huge hit to them because they rely on Cerise a lot, and they are not going to be able to put 2 debuffers at the beginning, because if they get her, she's going to be reducing the skill cooldown of your T-Cern or your Arbiter Vildred, right? Especially like T-Cern, you might start needing to put immunity on your T-Cern if you actually want your T-Cern to be able to use her S3 early on. So all in all, really, really solid kit for countering control. She definitely does have a ton of potential to counter a lot of the control teams. Is she an NLBL for control? No. Control will never die that way, but she definitely will do a lot of work against different teams. And you have to start thinking things even like Seaside Bellona, who applies debuffs on the S3 and the S2. She's going to be cycling a lot, and it's going to be very annoying with that S1. So a good Bruiser, it's a really solid Bruiser that is able to counter control teams very heavily, specifically those Cerise ftene team comps that have been running everywhere. She's going to be doing really, really good against those. So if you hate Cerise ftene in Guild Wars, in Arena, in RTA, she will be doing really, really good in those scenarios, right? So all those defenses with Cerise ftene, they are pretty much dunsos after after Emma Lilibet comes out, because you will be cutting in right after cerise ftene, stopping them right away, and then it's over. GG no re. But that is all I have for you guys today. I hope y'all are ready for Emma Lilibet and are ready to stop the cerise ftene meta. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.